Hello, colleagues and friends. I am grateful to Amirul for extending the invitation to me to share some of my thoughts with you on education and learning as I look back on my career with schools and helping teachers. So, in the time given to me today, I thought I would share a story which took place in a school I worked with in 2012. So I've I've titled the story "Makers on Parade," and it's basic. Why I've titled it this way, it should be evident later on as the story unfolds. But I think essentially why I have chosen this story to share with you is because it's a reminder to all of us as teachers to pay attention to the little things, the things that we sometimes are prone to overlook because of how busy we are. But if we don't pay attention to the little things, the things that actually matter to our students, we run the risk of um, losing touch with why we joined the teaching profession in the first place. So, without further ado, let me tell you the story. So, here's a screenshot, here's a picture of a typical parade square in a school, and the the co-curricular activity in this case is NCC Air, National Cadet Corps Air. And in this particular school, they were actually doing pretty well in terms of their national competitiveness in the annual competitions. Now, um, something interesting was happening in this school, which actually none of the teachers, including the CCA teacher in charge, were aware about. Um, this is taken from a screenshot. This is taken from a photograph in the canteen, and perhaps you can think about what the young girl, the young lady in the photograph is doing. She was actually soldering, and if you look at the door, she's actually soldering outside the door, and the magic really took place on the opposite side of the door within the room, which in this case was the um, the CCA room for National Cadet Corps Air in this school, and they had strict rules, like most CCAs do, enforcing access and limiting access um, only to so-called authorized people. Now, um, this is another photo of the CCA in action, and the reason I like this photo is because they had developed in this particular school a culture of intergenerational teaching. So, peer to peer learning, but across cohorts and not just across classes. So, there was a strong culture of seniors teaching juniors and juniors being enculturated into the CCA through collaborative effort with the seniors. One of the aspects of the National Cadet Corps Air in terms of preparation for national level competitions is aero modeling. And the trouble with aero modeling is, of course, that um, the planes are quite the model aircraft are quite expensive to repair if crashed, and of course, um, novices, the lower secondaries, students, the Sec 1 students, the new recruits to the CCA, may tend to crash the model aeroplanes more frequently. So, what was interesting was that the students themselves, the seniors, developed a curriculum which was very scaffolded to take the juniors through um, a scaffolded experience whereby they could slowly gain experience, firstly through virtual means like through a flight simulator, and progressing on to more physical, tangible means. So here they are practicing how to um, land on a particular given spot. In this particular photo, the young lady is seen repairing a model aeroplane. As I said earlier, one of the hazards of the CCA is that um, fairly fragile and expensive equipment would tend to be damaged from time to time. And what was interesting here is that as the students in the CCA repaired um, the model aeroplanes, I found that they were actually learning quite a lot in terms of applying their knowledge of science and design and technology, as well as engineering. So here, for example, um, the young lady is trying to improvise how to repair the damaged undercarriage, the wheels, and you can see that she's having to rewire some of the parts of the electric motor to compensate for the repairing of the wheels. Now, one way in which the students chose to limit the damage of to the actual model aeroplanes was again in the spirit of the um, uh, scaffolded curriculum which they themselves designed. They got the juniors to practice with less fragile and less expensive physical components, in this case, a motorized glider. So here they are, the juniors, practicing their aero modeling skills and their skills with the remote control of the motorized glider. So if this were to crash, it would be a lot cheaper to try to repair. And of course, one thing I'm trying to get at is that the repair actually the attempts at repair actually reveal um, the students' creativity and ingenuity, because they had to find ways of repairing the gliders and the aeroplanes using spare parts and using cheap, low cost parts, which were not necessarily the original parts, but by learning to do so, they were actually um, learning to what is known as hack the model aeroplanes. And by doing so, they again were learning about important principles in physics, such as lift and drag, um, center of gravity, and how that changes with different materials and densities. And they went on to progress beyond just designing model aeroplanes to actually thinking about motorized cars as well. So all this was done importantly not in the formal curriculum, and no teacher was telling them to do so. They were interested in modifying uh, these these kits all by themselves and expressing their own interests in a very self-directed way. And here's a picture where you can see that the seniors are the seniors are, I mean, ultimately it's still a, a co-curricular activity where there is an explicit rank structure. So what I found interesting was that in the context of an explicit rank structure, um, they still managed to build a culture of experimentation and creativity. So it's not necessarily true that in a rigid structure, it kills creativity, because the students themselves here um, were able to negotiate power structures in a way that was personally meaningful to both the juniors and the seniors. Now, one of the students in particular went on to continue uh, learning about physics and science and chemistry. By here, he continued his interest in making things, and here he's trying to make a table lamp for his own studies. So here you can see the lamp, and then he went on to learn about he went on to experiment with uh, electrodes in chemistry, and through his own experimentation and not through the textbook, he was able to apply the theoretical knowledge from the textbook to his real life understanding. So basically, I like this story because if you remember, there was that picture of the young lady squatting outside a door. And all too often, I think, as teachers, we just take things at face value, and if and we actually miss the opportunity to help students connect their everyday understanding to book knowledge, the kind of knowledge that we try to convey to them in our formal classroom structures. But very often the real learning takes place behind doors that are closed to us, behind doors that we do not have access to. And if we are not alert to these opportunities to inquire and interact with our students' interests, we actually forfeit very rich opportunities to help them connect real world understanding with their books. So I encourage all of us to continue in the very good work that we are doing, and thank you very much again. Terima kasih banyak.